So chapter 8, when I last read, I finished chapter 7, and Mr. Granger, the white plantation owner who wants their land, basically came over and was threatening the Logans that they need to stop this boycotting business of the Wallace store, or things are going to get ugly. So there's some pretty a lot of foreshadowing there. And he did talk about, the bank not going good on the loan agreement because of what the Logans are doing. So there's that. And this is the moment we've all been waiting for. So we're going to find out how things turn out with Cassie and Lily and Jean. Chapter 8. Miss Lily and Jean, would you wait up a minute? Cassie, you cracked? Cried Stacy. Cassie, where are you? Get back here! Cassie! Stacy's words faded into the gray stillness of the January morning as I turned deaf ears to him and hurried after Lily and Jean. Thanks for waiting up, I said when I caught up with her. She stared down at me irritably. What you want? Well, I said, walking beside her, I've been thinking about what happened in Strawberry last month. Yeah, commented Lily and Jean suspiciously. Well, to tell you the truth, I was real upset for a while there, but my papa told me it don't do no good sitting around and being mad. Then I seen how things was. I mean, I should have seen it all along. After all, I am who I am, and you are who you are. Lily and Jean looked at me with astonishment that I could see the matter so clearly. Well, I'm glad you finally learned the way of things. Oh, I did, I piped readily. The way I see it, here, let me take them books for you, Miss Lily and Jean. The way I see it, we all got to do what we got to do. And that's what I'm going to do from now on. Just what I gotta. Good for you, Cassie, replied Lily and Jean enthusiastically. God'll bless you for it. You think so? Why, of course, she exclaimed. God wants all his children to do what's right. I'm glad you think so, Ms. Lily and Jean. When we reached the crossroads, I waved goodbye to Lily and Jean and waited for the others. Before they reached me, Little Man exclaimed, Oh, I'm going to tell Mama, carrying that old dumb Lily and Jean's books. Cassie, what'd you do that for? Questioned Christopher John, his round face pained. Ah, shoot, laughed TJ. Oh, Cassie just learned she better do what's good for her if she don't want no more Mr. Sims's backhand. I clenched my fist behind me and narrowed my eyes in a Logan gaze, but managed to hold my tongue. Stacy stared at me strangely, then turned and said, We better get to school. As I followed, Jeremy touched my arm timidly. Cassie, you shouldn't have done that. That old Lily and Jean, she ain't worth it. I stared at Jeremy, trying to understand him, but he shied away from me and ran down the road after his sister. Mama gonna whip you good, too, said a prideful little man, still fuming as he approached the school. 'Cause I'm sure enough gonna tell her. Nah, you ain't, said Stacy. There was a shocked silence as all heads turned to him. This here thing's between Cassie and Lily and Jean. Ain't nobody telling nobody nothing about this. He stared directly at TJ, caught his eye, and repeated, Nobody. Oh, man, cried TJ. It ain't none of my business. Then after a moment's silence, he added, I got too many worries of my own to worry about Cassie, Uncle Tom, and Lily and Jean. There's a book that was written actually by a woman, Harriet Beecher Stowe, during slavery, and it was titled Uncle Tom's Cabin. And Tom was a black man who was a slave, and he was the protagonist in the story. And it basically, well, one of the protagonists in the story, and It basically detailed his life and everything he had gone through at the different places where, he was sold. And so, very famous, very informative novel that's well known. So Uncle Tomming Lily and Jean just means being a slave. And it's, TJ talking that way is a little disturbing. It's like, wow, TJ, he's something. My temper almost flew out of my mouth, but I pressed my lips tightly together, forcing it to stay inside. Them final examinations coming up in 2 weeks, man. Ain't no way I can afford to fail them things again, TJ continued. Then you won't, said Stacy. Shoot, that's what I thought last year, but your mama makes up the hardest examination she know how. He paused, sighed, and ventured. Bet, though, if you kind of ask her about what kind of questions, TJ, don't come talking to me again about cheating, cried Stacy angrily. After all the trouble I got in last time counting you got questions you ask mama yourself. If you say one word to me about them tests, I'm gonna... All right. TJ smiled and feigned apology. It's just that I'm gonna have to figure something out. I got a solution, I said, unable to resist just one bit of friendly advice. What's that? Try studying. After Uncle Hammer left on New Year's Day, Papa and I had gone into the forest, down the cow path, into the misty hollow where the trees lay fallen. For a while, we stood looking again at the destruction. Then, sitting on one of our fallen friends, we talked in quiet, respectful tones, observing the soft mourning of the forest. Mourning as in grieving the loss of those trees, that kind of mourning, mourning. And their fallen friends, of course, that's referring to the trees, referring to the story, Song of the Trees. When I had explained the whole strawberry business to Papa, he said slowly, the Bible says you're supposed to forgive these things. Yes, sir, I agreed, waiting. Supposed to turn the other cheek. Yes, sir. Papa rubbed his mustache and looked up at the trees, standing like sentinels on the edge of the hollow, listening. But the way I see it, the Bible didn't mean for you to be no fool. Now, one day, maybe I can forgive John Anderson for what he done to these trees. I ain't gonna forget it. I figure forgiving is not letting something nag at you, writing you out. Now, if I hadn't done what I'd done, then I couldn't have forgiven myself, and that's the truth of it. Remember, because he took a stand, so he's referring to what happened in Song of the Trees and his own stand to, talk to Cassie about the fact that sometimes you do have to stand up for yourself. I nodded gravely, and he looked down at me. You're a lot like me, Cassie girl, but you got yourself a bad temper, like your Uncle Hammer's. That temper can get you in trouble. Yes, sir. Now, this thing between you and Lily and Jean, most folks would say you should go around doing what she tell you. And maybe you should. Papa! Cassie, there'll be a whole lot of things you ain't going to want to do, but you'll have to do it in this life just so you can survive. I don't like the idea of what Charlie Sims did to you no more than your Uncle Hammer. But I had to weigh the hurt of what happened to you to what could have happened if I had gone after him. If I'd gone after Charlie Sims and given him a good thrashing like I felt like doing, the hurt to all of us would have been a lot more than the hurt you received. So I let it be. I don't like letting it be, but I can live with that decision. But there are other things, Cassie, that if I let be, they'd eat away at me and destroy me in the end. And it's the same with you, baby. There are things you can't back down on, things you got to take a stand on, but it's up to you to decide what them things are. You have to demand respect in this world. Ain't nobody just gonna hand it to you. How you carry yourself, what you stand for, that's how you gain respect. But, little one, ain't nobody's respect worth more than your own. You understand that? Yes, sir. Now, there ain't no sense in going around being mad. You clear your head so you can think sensibly. Then I want you to think real hard on whether or not Lily and Jean's worth taking a stand about. But keep in mind, Lily and Jean probably won't be the last white person to treat you this way. He turned toward me so that he looked me full in the face, and the seriousness of his eyes startled me. He held my chin up with the wide flat of his hand. This here's an important decision, Cassie. Very important. I want you to understand that. But I think you can handle it. Now you listen to me and you listen good. This thing, if you make the wrong decision and Charlie Sims gets involved, then I get involved and there'll be trouble. Big trouble? I whispered, like with the trees. Don't know, Papa said, but it could be bad. Pondered his words, and I promised Mr. Sims ain't never gonna hear about it, Papa. Papa studied me. I'll count on that, Cassie girl. I'll count real hard on that. So Papa basically just encouraged Cassie to take a stand. And in a way, make a good decision, but don't get caught. For the month of January, I was Lillian Jean's slave, and she thoroughly enjoyed it. She even took to waiting for me in the morning with Jeremy so that I could carry her books. When friends of hers walked with us, she bragged about her little colored friend and almost hugged herself with pleasure when I called her Ms. Lillian Jean. When we were alone, she confided her secrets to me, the boy she had passionately loved for the past year and the things she had done to attract his attention, with no success, I might add. The secrets of the girl she couldn't stand as well as those she could, and even a tidbit or two about her eldest brother's romantic adventures. All I had to do to prime the gossip pump was smile nicely and whisper a Ms. Lillian Jean every now and then. I almost hated to see the source dry up. The source dry up, that's it's a metaphor for not having something anymore. It's almost like with a well, the source of the water would be a well, and when it dries up, you're not getting any water anymore. So it's a figure of speech, meaning I'm not going to get any more of the gossip. At the end of examination day, I shot out of Miss Crocker's class and hurried into the yard. I was eager to get to the crossroads to meet Lillian Jean. I'd promised myself to first take care of the examinations, and then Lil Man, Claude, Christopher John, come on, y'all, I cried. There's Stacy. The four of us dashed across the yard, trailing Stacy and TJ to the road. When we caught up with them, it was obvious that the jovial mask TJ always wore had been stripped away. She did it on purpose, TJ accused. A nasty scowl twisted in his face. Man, you was cheating, Stacy pointed out. What you expect for her to do? She could have given me a break. We're nothing but a couple pieces of old paper. Didn't need them nohow. Well, what you have them for? Oh, man, leave me be. All y'all Logans think you're so doggone much with y'all new coats and books and shiny new Packard. He swirled around, glaring down at Christopher John, Little Man, and me. I'm sick of all y'all, your mama and your papa too. Then he turned and fled angrily up the road. TJ, hey man, where you going? Stacy yelled after him. TJ didn't answer. The road swelled into a small hill and he disappeared on the other side of it. When we reached the crossroads and saw no sign of him on the southern road leading home, Stacy asked Claude, where'd he go? Claude looked shamefaced and rubbed one badly worn shoe against the other. Down to that old Wallace store, I reckon. Stacy sighed. Come on, then. We better get on home. He'll be all right by tomorrow. Y'all go on, I said. I gotta wait for Lillian Jean. Cassie, I'll catch up with you, I said before Stacy could lecture me. Here, take my books, will you? He looked at me as if he should say something else, but deciding not to, he pushed the younger boys on and followed them. When Lillian Jean appeared, I sighed thankfully that only Jeremy was with her. It could be today for sure. Jeremy, who seemed to be as disappointed in me as Little Man, hurried on to catch Stacy. That's fine, too. I knew he would. I took Lillian Jean's books, and as we sauntered down the road, I only half listened to her. I was sweeping the road looking for the deep wooded trail I had selected earlier in the week. When I saw it, I interrupted Lillian Jean apologetically. Excuse me, Miss Lillian Jean, but I got a real nice surprise for you. Found it just the other day down in the woods. For me? Questioned Lillian Jean. Oh, he's such a sweet thing, Cassie. Where you say it is? Come on, I'll show you. Every time I read that part, I think about a boy who was in my class several years ago who his face just twisted and he's like, that's really weird and creepy, and who follows somebody into the woods to see a surprise. And it just makes me laugh every time I think about it. I stepped into the dry gully and scrambled onto the bank. Lily and Jean hung back. All right, I assured her. It ain't far. You just got to see it, Miss Lily and Jean. That did it. Grinning like a Cheshire cat, she crossed the gully and hopped onto the bank. Following me up the overgrown trail into the deep forest, she asked, You sure it's this way, little Cassie? Just a bit further. Up ahead there. Ah, here it is. We entered a small dark clearing with hanging forest vines totally hidden from the road. Well, where's my surprise? Right here, I said, smashing Lily and Jean's books on the ground. Why, what'd you do that for? Lily and Jean asked, more startled than angry. I got tired of carrying them, I said. This what you brought me all the way down here for? Well, you just better get untied and pick them up again. Then, expecting that her will would be done with no more than that from her, she turned to leave the glade. Make me, I said quietly. What? The shock on her face was almost comical. I said, make me. Her face paled. Then, red with anger, she stepped daintily across the clearing and struck me hard across the face. For the record, she'd hit me first. I didn't plan on her hitting me again. I flailed into her, tackling her with such force that we both fell. After the first shock of my actually laying hands on her, she fought as best she could, but she was no match for me. I was calm and knew just where to strike. I punched her in the stomach and in the buttocks and twisted her hair, but not once did I touch her face. She, expending her energy in angry, nasty name-calling, clawed at mine, managing to scratch twice. She tried to pull my hair, but couldn't, for I'd purposely asked Big Ma to braid it into flat braids against my head. When I'd pinned Lily and Jean securely beneath me, I yanked unmercifully on her long, loose hair and demanded an apology for all the names she'd called me, and for the incident in Strawberry. At first, she tried to be cute, ain't apologizing to no M-word, she sassed. You want to be bald, girl? And she apologized. For herself, for her father, for her brothers and her mother, for Strawberry in Mississippi, and by the time I finished jerking at her head, I think she would have apologized for the world being around had I demanded it. But when I let her go and she sped safely to the other side of the clearing with the trail in front of her, she threatened to tell her father. You do that, Lily and Jean. You just do that. And I'm going to make sure all your fancy friends know how you keep the secret. Bet you won't be learning no more secrets after that. Cassie, you wouldn't do that, not after I trusted you. You mutter one word of this to anybody, Lily and Jean? I said, attempting to narrow my eyes like Papa's. Just one person, and everybody at Jefferson Davis gonna know who you crazy about and all your other business. And you know I know. Besides, if anybody ever did find out about this fight, you'd be laughed clear up to Jackson. You here going on 13, getting beat up by a 9-year-old. I was starting up the trail feeling good about myself when Lily and Jean asked, bewildered, But, Cassie, why? You were such a nice girl. I stared at her, astonished. Then I turned and left the forest, not wanting to believe that Lily and Jean didn't even realize it had all been just a game. So she got her revenge, and she did it in a way that would ensure that her father never finds out, and it never ends up involving Cassie's father. Cassie Logan. Yes'm, Miss Crocker. That's the third time I've caught you daydreaming this morning. Just because you managed to come in first on the examinations last week doesn't mean a thing this week. We're in a new quarter and everyone's slate is clean. You'll make no A's by daydreaming, you understand that? Yes'm, I said, not bothering to add that she repeated herself so much that all a body had to do was listen for the first few minutes of her lesson to be free to daydream to her heart's content. I think you better just sit in the back where you're not so comfortable, she said. Then maybe you'll pay more attention. But Miss Crocker raised her hand, indicating she didn't want to hear another word, and banished me to the very last row in front of the window. I slid onto the cold seat after its former occupant had eagerly left it for my warm quarters by the stove. As soon as Miss Crocker turned away, I mumbled a few indignant phrases, then hugged my Christmas sweater to me. I tried to pay attention to Miss Crocker, but the cold creeping under the window sill made it impossible. Unable to bear the draft, I decided to line the sill with paper from my notebook. I ripped out the paper, then turned to the window. As I did, a man passed under it and disappeared. So this actually tells us As I did, a man passed under it and disappeared. The man was Caleb Wallace. I raised my hand. Miss Crocker, may I be excused, please, ma'am? I gotta, well, you know. As soon as I had escaped Miss Crocker, I dashed to the front of the building. Caleb Wallace was standing in front of the seventh grade class building talking to Mr. Welliver, remember he's the principal, and two white men whom I couldn't make out from where I stood. When the men entered the building, I turned and sped to the rear and carefully climbed onto the woodpile stacked behind it. I peeked cautiously through a broken window into Mama's classroom. The men were just entering, Caleb Wallace first, followed by a man I didn't know, and Mr. Harlan Granger. Mama seemed startled to see the men, but when Mr. Granger said, "Been hearing about your teaching, Mary, so as members of the school board, we thought we'd come by and learn something," she merely nodded and went on with her lesson. Mr. Welliver left the room, returning shortly after with 3 folding chairs for the visitors. He himself remained standing. Mama was in the middle of history, and I knew that was bad. I could tell Stacy knew it too. He sat tense near the back of the room, his lips very tight, his eyes on the men. But Mama didn't flinch. She always started her history class the first thing in the morning, when the students were most alert, and I knew that the hour was not yet up. To make matters worse, her lesson for the day was slavery. She spoke on the cruelty of it, of the rich economic cycle it generated as slaves produced the raw materials for the factories of the North in Europe. How the country profited and grew from free labor of a people still not free. Before she had finished, Mr. Granger picked up a student book, flipped it open to the pasted over front cover, and pursed his lips. "Thought these books belonged to the county," he said, interrupting her. Mama glanced over at him, but did not reply. Mr. Granger turned the pages, stopped, and read something. "I don't see all them things you're teaching in here." "That's because they're not in there," Mama said. "Well, if it ain't in here, then you got no right teaching it. This book's approved by the Board of Education, and you're expected to teach what's in it." "I can't do that." "And why not?" Mama, her back straight and her eyes fixed on that book, fixed on the men, answered, because all that's in that book isn't true." Mr. Granger stood. He laid the book back on the student's desk and headed for the door. The other board member and Caleb Wallace followed. At the door, Mr. Granger stopped and pointed at Mama. "You must be some kind of smart, Mary, to know more than the fellow who wrote that book. Smarter than the school board, too, I reckon." Mama remained silent, and Mr. Welliver gave her no support. "In fact," Mr. Granger continued, putting on his hat, "you so smart, I expect you better just forget about teaching altogether. Then that way you'll have plenty of time to write your own book." With that, he turned his back on her, glanced at Mr. Welliver to make sure his meaning was clear, and left with the others behind him. So Mama was just fired. And you have to ask yourself, why did that happen? How did the men find out about Mama? I'm sure you guys have your ideas. We waited for Mama after school was out. Stacy had sent TJ and Claude on, and the four of us, silent and patient, were sitting on the steps when Mama emerged. She smiled down at us, seemingly not surprised that we were all there. I looked up at her, but I couldn't speak. I had never really thought much about Mama's teaching before. That was just a part of her being Mama. But now that she couldn't teach, I felt resentful and angry. And I hated Mr. Granger. You all know? She asked. We nodded as she slowly descended the stairs. Stacy took one handle of her black satchel, and I took the other. Christopher John and Little Man each took one of her hands, and we started across the lawn. I'm going to stop there. So the significance of Mama being fired is going to take a toll, no matter who was the one who, instigated it and made it so that Mr. Wallace and the board members and the principal, that they all walked in at that particular moment during her history lesson, knowing what kind of history she would be teaching, and also about the inside cover of the book. Is it Miss Crocker? Is it TJ? Find out. And we'll find out next time.